Chapter 61, Demolition Notice Released. Lin Yang was dragged out of sleep by the sound of noise. He squinted at the clock, a little past 8, but the street outside sounded like a market at noon. He rubbed his eyes, slipped into his slippers, and went to the balcony. Down below, the community bulletin board was ringed with people 3 deep, impossible to get through. Voices rose and fell in excited bursts, faces shone with barely contained glee. "Our neighborhood's going to be demolished," an aunt shouted, radiating excitement. "We've waited so long. Finally," an uncle added, eyes bright. The notice was just posted, black and white. How could it be fake? A young man waved his phone, showing a photo of the newly posted demolition notice. Lin Yang couldn't help smiling. He had been waiting half a month for this. Before the demolition notice went up, he'd used his inside information to buy all 10 available units in Jinling community. Based on the current compensation standards, he expected to receive 40 to 50 million. After accounting for costs, his profit would still be enormous, not to mention his foodie battery stock, which was growing at 20% a day and forming another solid pillar of his wealth. That stock he wasn't about to touch. The demolition payout, however, could be turned into something he could use immediately. Once he signed the compensation agreement, he could go home in triumph. He had avoided going back before, too afraid of gossip, but now he could finally return with his head held high. He lingered on the balcony and watched his neighbors celebrate as if it were the new year. Someone asked, "Why is Jinling being demolished all of a sudden?" "Urban renewal," a bespectacled young man said. "This time, it's under the new standards. The compensation's supposed to be generous." An elderly man puffed up with pride, as if he already had the money. "My place has been falling apart, leaks whenever it rains. I've been waiting for this demolition for years." An aunt clasped her hands, dreaming aloud about a better life in a new home. Children ran through the crowd, swept up in the adults' excitement, even if they didn't understand everything. The whole community buzzed with speculation and hope. Wang Dage was humming as he walked into the square, still basking in the afterglow of last night's date with the streamer Yu. Her smile and soft words were still warm in his mind. Then he saw the crowd around the notice board and pushed his way through. "What's going on? Why is everyone so excited?" he asked, grinning. Someone in the crowd recognized him. "Wang Dage, didn't you sell your place half a month ago?" "Yeah," Wang crowed, chest out. "I got a few $100,000 for it. Who wants these houses anyway?" The buyer was young. I lowered the price, sweet-talked him a little, and he paid in full. Next day, we did the transfer. "If any of you want to sell, I can put you in touch. That kid's easy to deal with." He smiled, pleased with himself. Then someone near the notice board cut in, voice low and urgent. "A notice just went up. Our community's included in the urban renewal plan. They're tearing it down." The words hit Wang like a slap. His smile froze. Color drained from his face. For a second, it seemed like all the blood had dropped out of him. "What did you say?" "It's true," another voice said. "I heard the compensation per house is at least a few million." Around him, people echoed the same news, and each repetition was another sting. Wang Dage's legs went weak. He gripped the nearest post as if it might steady him. His mind went blank except for one thought. "I sold it. I missed out on millions." He squeezed his eyes shut, nails biting into his palms, and tried to speak but couldn't. The laughter and chatter around him turned cruel and distant. He wanted to kick himself for being hasty, for not waiting another 2 weeks. But it was too late. Whatever fortune had been coming his way had passed into someone else's hands. Word spread fast. Those who had sold to Lin Yang started getting phone calls and WeChat messages from friends and relatives. Old Jiang was sprawled on his sofa watching television when the phone rang. He answered casually. "Hello? Old Chen?" "Old Jiang." Old Chen's voice was tight with disbelief and pity. "Did you hear? Jinling's being demolished. The compensation is huge. You sold at the worst time." The remote clattered out of Old Jiang's hand. He stammered. "What? Demolition? But I only sold it 2 weeks ago." Old Chen sounded sympathetic. "It's on the board now. Everyone's talking. Your luck just—" Old Jiang sat frozen on the couch, the words demolition and compensation looping in his head. He had been glad to get rid of the burden. Now he felt like a fool. He thumped his thigh and cursed himself. If he'd waited, the house could have made him millions. Sister Lee scrolled through a stream of WeChat messages with shaking fingers, relatives and neighbors forwarding the notice and commenting about the windfall. If I'd known they'd demolish it, I never would have sold, she murmured to herself. I'd have smashed pots and sold iron before parting with it. And Wang Dage, after leaving the crowd, locked himself in his bedroom. He sat on the bed with his head in his hands as his wife knocked on the door, voice anxious. "Honey, what's wrong? Open up." He didn't answer. The only sounds were his sharp, guilty breaths. He replayed the sale over and over, blaming himself for not checking the news more carefully. All around him, neighbors were already imagining new apartments, new lives, and generous compensation checks. He could only sit and watch those possibilities slip away. Chapter 62, Playing the Victim and Using the Power of Online Public Opinion. Old Wang came home crushed, collapsing onto the sofa with a blank stare, replaying the demolition notice and the fact that several million had slipped through his fingers. He kept blaming himself, hands clutching his head, body trembling. Then his phone rang, breaking the silence. Irritated, he almost hung up until he saw it was Yu calling. His eyes brightened as if he'd found a sliver of hope. This was the first time she had called him proactively. He straightened his clothes, smoothed his hair, cleared his throat, and answered. "Brother Wang, I heard your neighborhood is being demolished, and you'll get a big compensation payout. Congratulations." Yu's sweet voice chimed. Mentioning the demolition reopened the wound. Old Wang's face fell. He choked out, "The neighborhood is being demolished, but it doesn't matter to me. I sold the house half a month ago." "What? You sold it before the demolition?" Yu exclaimed. "It's already transferred and the deed's gone? No use regretting it now?" Old Wang answered helplessly, despair in his voice. "Yes, I sold it." "Listen, Brother Wang, if you trust me, I'll help. Even if we can't get the house back, we have to make up the loss," Yu said. That was the exact thought he'd had but couldn't act on. Hearing it voiced, he grabbed at it like a lifeline. "Okay, come over now. Let's figure this out." Yu arrived soon after. She was in her 40s, not young, but still attractive, stylishly dressed, large wavy hair draped over her shoulders, tasteful makeup, a figure-flattering dress, and heels that gave her a confident gait. Old Wang couldn't help staring. "Brother Wang, time is short. We need a solid plan," she said immediately. He paced, anxious, forehead creased. "I'm dying here. Millions just slipped away. What can I do?" "Sit. Tell me everything," she said, and they sat close on the sofa, whispering and sketching ideas on paper. Suddenly, Yu's eyes lit up. She waved a hand as if to emphasize a point. "Netizens sympathize with the weak," she said. "If we make your story sound desperate and pair it with this dirty, chaotic environment, people will empathize. Then we say you were tricked, someone swindled you out of your home." Old Wang nodded eagerly but worried. "Will that actually work? What if people see through it?" Yu patted his shoulder. "As long as you act convincingly, no one will suspect. Online people only see what we show them. Guide them, and they'll be on our side." They set to work. Old Wang dug out a set of clothes he hadn't worn in years, worn, patched, loose, and put them on. He smeared some paste on his face to fake snot, deliberately making himself look unkempt. He let his hair go greasy and matted to complete the image. Yu deliberately made the room look worse. She scattered things around, pulled out old furniture, and placed worn household items where the camera would catch them. The goal was a scene of poverty and despair. "Work on your expression," Yu instructed. "When we go live, you must radiate helplessness." Old Wang closed his eyes, recalled the pain of losing the demolition payout, and let his face contort into anguish. "Ready?" Yu called from the doorway, phone in hand. "Okay," he answered weakly. Yu started the live stream. Standing in the doorway with her phone, she adopted a tone of concern and indignation. "Folks, no dancing today. Something infuriating happened. This big brother here worked his whole life and finally bought a little house. Half a month ago, he was tricked out of it. Now he's homeless and living in a filthy garage." She pushed open the garage door and trained the camera inside. It rolled over the clutter-strewn floor, old clothes tossed aside, a dilapidated bed in the corner with a rumpled, foul-smelling quilt. Then it focused on Old Wang, hair greasy and plastered to his head, a smear of paste on his face, patched clothes hanging off him as he lay on the bed, eyes hollow with despair. Woo-woo, I'm so pitiful, he sobbed, wiping his face with grimy hands. My house was tricked away. I can only live in a garage next to a public toilet now. The chat exploded. Angry comments scrolled across the screen by the dozen. How could anyone be so cruel? Find that swindler. Return his house. He worked his whole life for it. Human flesh, search him. Expose him. This has to be punished by law. So unfair. Justice, please. We'll support you, streamer. Help him. Ban that cheater from the whole internet. The live stream filled with righteous fury. Everyone demanded the supposed swindler be found and punished. A few blocks away, the demolition notice was already posted. Lin Yang had moved into the purchased house and had put some daily items in the day before. After watching the scene from his balcony for a while that morning, he had returned to pack the rest of his things. His phone rang. Little Lee, the real estate agent who had handled the purchase of the community's 10 old houses. Hello, Brother Lin, Little Lee said. Quick, watch the live stream. Old Wang, the man who sold you the house, is slandering you online, saying you defrauded him. Netizens are calling for you to be condemned. Lin Yang smiled. Old Wang was efficient, he thought, but he wasn't worried. He had expected backlash and had already prepared. A recording of the conversation he'd had with Old Wang a few days earlier was ready to use. Chapter 63, Fermentation, It's Time to Fight Back. Lin Yang thanked Xiaoli sincerely for the tip about Old Wang and Yu's live stream. After hanging up, he opened Douyin, typed Yu's name into the search bar, and clicked into her room. What he saw made him frown. There were only a few dozen viewers. On screen, Old Wang was lying on the bed, playing the victim. I'm so miserable, he moaned. They tricked me out of my house. Now I can only live in a garage, homeless. His voice shook with despair. Anyone who didn't know the truth would feel for him. Yu stood beside him with her phone, looking both indignant and concerned as she addressed the camera. Everyone, Wang Dage is truly pitiful. This is outrageous. We have to get justice for him. Her words were clearly meant to stir up emotion. Each phrase seemed designed to fan viewers' anger. Lin Yang watched coldly. Human nature, he thought. When personal interests are at stake, people strip off their masks and show themselves for who they really are. He knew exactly what Old Wang and Yu were trying to do, play the grieving elder and whip up public pressure to extort part of the demolition compensation from him. He wasn't moved. He also knew this wasn't the right moment to release the recording he had. Exposing them now would clear his name, but would probably leave them unpunished because the incident's reach was still small. Better to let it ferment, let their lies spread and attract attention, and then drop the evidence in one decisive blow. He watched the scrolling comments in the stream, angry but limited to a small circle. Yu had been streaming for a long time and still had fewer than 100 viewers. At that rate, who knew when it would go viral? A plan formed. If the story wasn't spreading on its own, he'd push it. Lin Yang didn't hesitate. He invested 10,000 yuan in paid traffic to Yu's live stream through the platform. Instantly, the viewer count shot up, dozens to hundreds to thousands in moments, peaking around 15,000 before stabilizing. Yu, who had been quietly worried about the empty room, stared in disbelief as the numbers surged. Then she squealed with excitement. Everyone, people are coming. Thank you for the support. Let's get justice for Wang Dage. Her voice sharpened with adrenaline, and the phone in her hand trembled. To hold on to the sudden traffic, she dialed her performance up, every expression and gesture exaggerated into theatrical righteousness. Old Wang and Yu synchronized their acting to maximum effect. Old Wang made his hoarse voice sound even more miserable with deliberate wailing. Every sentence seemed wrung from a broken chest. I saw that he, an outsider, was struggling in Qing City, so I trusted him and sold the house to him. He told me the place was worthless. I was completely fooled. That was my only home. Overcome, he sat up, flailing his hands, tears mixing with snot and dirt, pathetic and convincing. Yu fed the crowd at the right moments, her voice sharp and angry like blades. People, this is monstrous. A lifetime of honesty, and now he's been scammed. No one should get away with this. We have to stand up for him. She even pointed at the camera, as if Lin Yang were standing there taking her verdict. As the room's popularity exploded, more people streamed in, and other Douyin creators noticed the traffic potential. They reposted clips, and the narrative, "Young man defrauded lonely elder out of his house," spread rapidly. Headlines followed. Shocking. Young man tricks lonely elder out of property. Heartbreaking. Elder's life savings stolen, left homeless. Exposed. How a young man set a trap to take an elder's home. The posts were like detonations, igniting netizen fury. Comments flooded in, full of denunciation and calls for punishment. This person should be arrested and locked up for years. Severe punishment. Justice for the elder. Human flesh search him, make him have nowhere to hide. Poor elder. Hope he gets his house back. They raged and vented at a liar they believed without question. Lin Yang watched it all with a steady gaze. His plan was unfolding exactly as he had intended. He was waiting for the right moment to act. As the public storm grew, his phone began to ring non-stop. "Lin Yang, what's going on? I just saw news calling you a swindler." Chen Qingqing's voice trembled with worry. She had seen the coverage and called to confirm. Lin Yang smiled faintly and reassured her. "Qingqing, don't worry. This is a staged act from old Wang and that streamer to extort me. I have the evidence. When the time is right, I'll show the truth." No sooner had he hung up when Hu Qian called. "Lin Yang, are you okay? Those stories are horrible. I could die of anger. You have to clear your name." "I'm fine. I already have a plan, and those who slandered me will be made to answer for it," he said calmly. Zhang Jun and Shi Kong called after that, everyone alarmed. Lin Yang answered each in turn with steady confidence. His words soothed their anxiety. Half a day passed. He ate and rested as usual, keeping a close eye on how the incident fermented. When several big influencers reposted the story and its spread reached a point of no return, Lin Yang knew the moment to counterattack had finally come. Chapter 64. Brother Tiger? Just as netizens' righteous indignation peaked and their denunciations of Lin Yang reached a fever pitch, Lin Yang finally acted. He didn't post a written statement or hold a press conference. He uploaded an audio recording to a social media platform. It was like pouring a bucket of cold water over the raging public outcry. Everyone froze and turned their attention to it. The recording opened with Lin Yang's voice. "Wang Dai, what has made you so happy?" Then Wang Daga's triumphant laughter rang out. "Haha, you noticed? It's all thanks to you. If you hadn't bought my rundown house, I wouldn't be in this position now. My place had been on the market for half a year with no takers, and because of you, I finally got the money. I used the proceeds to help Yuan Yuan win that PK against other streamers that night, and she kept her promise to be my girlfriend. We've already been on 3 dates in 2 weeks." His tone was gloating, every word a blade aimed at the netizens who had been taken in. He went on, excitedly recounting details of his dates with Yuan Yuan. "Haha, Lin Yang, you wouldn't believe how sweet that girl is. Every time we go out, I feel like I've eaten honey. Last time she even leaned on my shoulder and told me she only likes mature, steady men like me. I nearly fainted with joy." He sounded drunk on the memory. When people heard that recording, it hit them like a slap. They burned with humiliation. They had thought they were standing up for a lonely, wronged old man. Instead, they discovered they had been tricked into enabling a deliberate con. Anger, shame, and regret tangled together, leaving them stunned. Fury exploded. People felt like clowns who'd been performed on. The thought of being duped was nauseating. Their rage washed over Yuan Yuan and Wang Dag. The once bustling livestream room filled with curses. How disgusting. They played with our emotions. This streamer has awful taste, hooking up with that dirty old man. Those 2 scammers deserve to die. Give me back my sympathy. Refund my money. Hostile comments rained down like cannonballs. The sympathy and support that had been there a moment before turned into the sharpest accusations, each one full of the anger and humiliation of people who'd been deceived. Yuan Yuan, still basking in the live stream's sudden popularity and convinced she was about to become an online champion of justice, smiled confidently at the camera and declared, "Everyone, see? So many people are standing up for Wang Dodge. Our power is limitless. We must make sure the scammer gets what he deserves." Her voice was drowned almost immediately by a tidal wave of cursing. Wang Dodge watched the screen in stunned silence. The grin froze on his face and became ugly and rigid. He hadn't expected such a turn. Fear blanked his mind. He opened his mouth to speak and found his throat blocked. No sound came out. Netizens weren't content to just swear. People started reporting the live stream en masse for false advertising, deceiving viewers, and malicious hype. Each report felt like a blade aimed at Yuan Yuan and Wang Dage. Rumors were flung in the chat. They'd apparently run scams before. This was just when they were finally exposed. Others egged on the attacks, whipping the crowd into further fury. Chaos swallowed the stream. Within minutes, the platform permanently shut the live stream down. The room went black. Yuan Yuan and Wang Dege stared at the dark screen as if cold water had been poured over them. Their meticulously planned scheme to get rich had evaporated. Not only did they not receive a penny in relocation compensation, they'd also burned their reputations and lost their accounts. Wang Dage sank to the floor, hands over his head, muttering, "It's over. It's all over." Yuan Yuan fared no better. No money, no account. Furious and bewildered, she scanned the internet for the cause of the sudden turn and found the audio Lin Yang had posted. "Wang Dage, how could you be so stupid? You didn't even notice someone was recording you," she spat, then bolted out the door. Wang Dage scrambled after her. "Yuan Yuan, how could I have known he had tricks like that? It's my fault, but let's think. There must be another way to get the demolition compensation." The phrase, demolition compensation, made Yuan Yuan pause and soften a little. "I've been streaming all day. I'm starving. Let's eat first, then think of a plan." "Okay." No sooner had they stepped outside than they were recognized. A sharp-eyed woman pointed and shouted, "Look, it's those two scammers. How shameless to play on everyone's sympathy online." Her voice drew attention. Passing pedestrians stopped and circled around. A young man, face red with anger, strode forward and yelled, "You still have the nerve to come out? People online were so terribly deceived by you. With people like you around, who would ever trust anything online again?" An old man shook his head and sighed with obvious disgust. These days, for fame and money, people will do anything. No morals left. His words carried the weight of disappointment, as if societal trust were crumbling. Yuan Yuan and Wang Dage were surrounded, suddenly on display like criminals. Their faces burned. They tried to speak, but their throats seemed blocked. They could only hang their heads and cover their faces, trying to survive the humiliation. They ran home as quickly as they could. To avoid being recognized, they pulled hats and masks down tight and shuffled back out like two guilty thieves. But the crowd's eyes were everywhere. At the apartment complex gate, children spotted them and cried out, "Look, it's the scammers! Mom says they're bad people." The shout echoed in the empty entrance, and a crowd formed again, pointing. Someone shoved Wang Dage hard, and he nearly fell. Before they could react, someone kicked Yuan Yuan from behind. She screamed and staggered forward. They were jostled and beaten, cursed and defenseless. When the crowd finally dispersed, the two were bruised and swollen, their clothes torn. Yuan Yuan's hair hung in tangled clumps over her face. Her eyes were wide with fear and despair. Wang Dage lay slumped on the ground, cheeks purple with bruises, gasping like a wounded animal. Leaning on each other, they dragged themselves home. Each step pulled at fresh sting, every movement a reminder of what they'd just endured. Dried blood stained the corner of Wang Dage's mouth. Yuan Yuan's tangled hair hid the terror in her eyes. Neighbors continued to point as they passed. Wang Dage stared at the ceiling, hollow and bewildered, the beating replaying over and over in his head. Yuan Yuan sat on the sofa, something like stubbornness hardening her expression. She ground her teeth and spoke slowly, deliberately. "If they're going to make my life this miserable, I won't let him go unpunished. Wang Dage, pack up. We're going to find my cousin for help. He's with Brother Hu. We'll make Lin Yang pay." Wang Dage, who'd been slumping nearby, shot up at the mention of Brother Hu, a mixture of fear and hope crossing his face. "You mean that Brother Hu has connections on both sides of the law?" Chapter 65, Scammer. The setting sun painted the old neighborhood in a warm afterglow. Lin Yang was busy hauling cardboard boxes down the stairs when Qin Jiwan came home from work carrying a fresh bento. He stopped short at the sight, confusion spreading across his face. "Lin Yang, what are you doing?" Qin took a couple of steps closer and saw the boxes stacked by the door. "I thought the whole estate was going to be demolished. Have you already found a new place?" Lin Yang wiped sweat from his brow with the back of his hand and smiled. "Yeah, I'm moving my stuff over now. A flash of disappointment crossed Chin's face, quickly replaced by curiosity. He stepped up beside Lin Yang. Where is it? Can we still be roommates? You're the best roommate I've ever had. Lin Yang's smile turned apologetic. Probably not. I didn't rent it. It's mine. The bento nearly slipped from Qin Jiuan's hands. His eyes went wide. His jaw dropped. For a long beat, he just stared. You've only been out of school 2 years, and you own a place in Xing City? He was equal parts shocked and envious. He thought of his own struggle with rent and felt ridiculous by comparison. What am I compared to him? A clown? He thought inwardly. After collecting himself, Qin sighed. I've been looking around Xing City too, but the prices are insane. Even in the outermost districts, I can't afford anything. He gazed off, resentful and wistful. I really envy the people over at Binjiang Bay across from the company building. They must have been born into money. Reincarnation would be a handy skill. Qin's curiosity got the better of him. Where did you buy? Binjiang Bay. Qin's reaction was instant. He looked as if someone had struck him, eyes huge, expression frozen. Then he lunged forward, gripped Lin Yang's shoulders with both hands and gaped. Binjiang Bay? Are you kidding me? That's the top development in Xing City. Houses there go for at least 20 million yuan. You didn't win some huge lottery, did you? He immediately shook his head. No, the 600 million jackpot on the news wasn't from Xing City. As he spoke, Lin Yang walked around the car parked in front of the building. With a practiced sweep of his foot, the trunk popped open. Qin's jaw dropped even further. Is this your car? He blurted. He had always wondered why such a luxury vehicle was parked in the complex. Now the answer hit him. He patted around it like a child inspecting a new toy and, unable to help himself, ran a hand over the smooth paint. This is unreal. Lin Yang, you've really changed. Lin slid the boxes into the trunk, climbed into the driver's seat and opened the door. Get in. Let's go eat. Qin jumped in like a man still half-dazed, buckled his seatbelt and kept staring at the luxurious interior. This is what a real car feels like, he sighed. I've only ever seen cars like this on TV or at shows. I never imagined I'd be sitting in one today. Lin started the engine and eased the car out of the neighborhood. We can talk while we eat, he said, smiling. Qin's mind was restless the whole way, glancing at Lin, then at the passing streets, trying to reconcile the Lin Yang he knew with the man in the car. Lin drove them to Westlake Restaurant. The old building, lit up at dusk, looked especially stately. Red lanterns at the entrance swayed in the breeze as if in welcome. Inside the hall, soft classical music mingled with the clink of cutlery. Carved screens and simple wooden furnishings gave the place a cultured, refined air. A server led them to a quiet private room. Lin opened the menu and skimmed it casually, while Qin sat stiffly beside him, scanning prices as if he were tallying them in his head, his brows furrowed at every dish. When Lin asked what he wanted, Qin stalled, then said, sheepishly, anything. You pick. I'm not picky. Lin smiled, ordered a few specialties, and turned to the server. Let's start with the fire tree silver flower, he paused, and then added, and a few other things. He'd had the fire tree silver flower before. It was pricey but unforgettable. A single plate of bean sprouts was 2,188 yuan. They'd been roommates for 2 years and had been close. Now they were going their separate ways, and Lin wanted to treat Qin to a good farewell. Anything else you want? Lin asked. Don't be shy. Qin waved his hand, uneasy. No, that's enough. This is already too much. He thought the whole menu was extravagant, but didn't want to say so. Through the meal, Qin ate carefully, treating each bite like something fragile, stealing glances around the ornate room with a look of awkward awe. It set off a sharp contrast with Lin, who ate relaxedly and comfortably. Watching him, Lin felt a pang of nostalgia. He could see his former cautious self reflected in Qin's manner. They had just finished and were about to leave when the private room door slammed open with a bang. A group of people stormed in. Leading them was a burly man with a jagged scar across his face. Under the lights, the mark made him look particularly fierce. Behind him trailed several younger men with dyed hair, loud clothes, cigarettes dangling from their mouths. Their heavy boots echoed on the floor, and their shouting shattered the calm. Among them were Old Wang and Yu Yu, the same streamer who had done a live with him, both bearing bruised faces and swollen noses. Old Wang pointed directly at Lin and shouted, There he is. He conned me out of a house. The place is about to be demolished. They could get at least a few million in compensation. Seeing old Wang made Lin piece things together. These people had been stirred up and wanted trouble. If he didn't handle it decisively, it would only escalate. A memory flashed to his mind. During a recent camping trip, Lin had pulled an off-road vehicle out of a muddy rut. The owner, Brother Hu, had added him on WeChat to thank him, promising he could be reached anytime. Brother Hu had said he had connections in both the underworld and legitimate businesses and was someone to rely on. Lin didn't hesitate. He took out his phone, typed an address, and sent it. Within seconds, a reply popped up. If they dare to be rash, tell them my name. I'm near Westlake Restaurant. I'll be there in 10 minutes. The scar-faced man's eyes glittered when old Wang mentioned the demolition money. He hissed at Lin, then motioned with a hand. The dyed-hair men slid in close, one on each side of Lin, closing ranks so he couldn't get up. The scarred man stepped forward slowly, voice low and dangerous. Kid, he said with deliberate menace, I heard you swindled my brother-in-law out of a house. If we don't settle this properly today, you won't be leaving. Chapter 66. Kneel down and beg for mercy. At Scarface's signal, the blond man lunged at Lin Yang. Relying on the agility and the hard, factory-forged physique he'd built up, Lin Yang sidestepped and with a powerful shoulder throw, sent the attacker flying like a sack. The man arced through the air and crashed to the floor, groaning as he struggled to rise. The other blonde, seeing that, quickly drew his hand back, too frightened to come closer. Scarface's face darkened with fury at his men being so easily thrown. He spat, calling them trash, and stepped forward himself. Like a raging bull, he charged toward Lin Yang, the air whistling around him. Lin Yang braced and met him head-on. In an instant, the two were locked in a brutal scramble. Scarface's strikes were fast and vicious, each punch carrying bone-crushing force. Lin Yang had good conditioning, but no formal combat training. He could only react on instinct. He handled the smaller thugs without trouble, but against someone with Scarface's experience, he began to struggle. A straight punch hissed past his face, grazing his cheek and leaving it stinging. Before he could recover, Scarface's boot slammed into his abdomen, and Lin Yang braced for the blow that would send him flying. Qin Jiuan suddenly interposed himself, taking the kick meant for Lin Yang. The impact sent Qin crashing back into a table. He staggered, barely regained his footing, coughing and wincing. Lin Yang's chest tightened at the sight. Qin had taken the hit for him, and Lin Yang felt both grateful and anxious. It was obvious now that Scarface was no amateur. Lin Yang might not be able to hold out. At the side of the room, old Wang and Yu Yu watched with smug satisfaction as Lin Yang faltered. Old Wang's face was bruised and swollen, but his mood was unbothered. His eyes, already small, narrowed to slits, and his lips curled into a grin that revealed crooked, yellowed teeth. Humph, he drawled. Kid, you still don't know how to fight. Now you know what fear feels like, huh? Return the house to me quick, and maybe my cousin will let you off easy. Yu Yu stood with her arms folded, a mocking sneer on her face. She sashayed in front of Lin Yang, voice high and thin as she taunted. Look at you, getting beaten by my cousin and not even able to fight back. My cousin hangs out with Brother Hu. Who in Xing City doesn't know Brother Hu's name? Cross my cousin and you won't have a good life. Do what's smart and give the house back to Brother Wang, or you'll regret it. She tossed her hair for emphasis, flaunting the moment as if the whole room belonged to her. Old Wang and Yu Yu traded barbs like a performance. Their laughter grated against Lin Yang's ears. Old Wang slapped his thigh as if cheering Scarface on. Yu Yu jabbed a finger at Lin Yang, delighting in his helplessness. In their eyes, the outcome was already decided. Lin Yang was nothing but fish on their chopping block. Just as the fight reached a critical point, the private room door burst open with a thunderous bang that silenced everything. A tall, imposing figure filled the doorway, every step measured and confident. He carried an aura of authority that made it hard to breathe, and his gaze was icy and precise. Scarface turned, and at sight of the newcomer, the fierceness drained from his face. Color leached away until he was ashen. His muscles twitched uncontrollably. His legs seemed to lose strength, and with a soft thud, he collapsed to his knees. He tried to speak, but fear clotted his throat, and only broken sounds escaped him. The two blonde thugs who had been so cocky were frozen, eyes wide with terror. Cigarettes dropped from numb fingers. Their bodies shook, and then they too crumpled to the floor, suddenly unable to stand. Brother, brother who? Scarface managed, voice trembling. We were wrong. We won't do it again. He and the others began to kowtow frantically, forehead hitting the floor with repeated thuds until skin reddened and began to tear. The room filled with the sound of desperate pleading and the thump of heads on wood. Lin Yang stared, stunned. He'd heard Brother Hu's name before, rumors of influence and power, but he hadn't expected one presence to command such instant, visceral submission. One look from this man had broken them. Brother Hu walked into the room with slow, steady steps, his gaze sweeping over the prostrate figures and settling on Lin Yang. The menace that had silenced everyone softened for a moment into a wry, almost gentle smile. "Brother, I'm late," he said as he approached. "These scoundrels didn't hurt you, did they?" Chapter 67. Is he someone you can mess with? When Brother Hu called Lin Yang my brother, Scar's face went suddenly pale. He lunged to Lin Yang's feet, prostrating himself and babbling, "I was blind and didn't recognize a great man. It's my fault. Please, as a great man, don't hold a grudge against someone like me. Don't punish me." His forehead hit the floor over and over until it was red and swollen, strands of hair plastered to his sweat-soaked skin. Seeing their boss in that state, Scar's men scrambled after him, knees hitting the floor, crawling toward Lin Yang with a series of thumps. Terror and pleading showed on all their faces. "Please let us go. We'll never dare again," they cried. Old Wang and Yu Yu stood frozen, mouths agape. They hadn't expected the hired thugs to grovel like this. For a moment, they just stood stunned, unable to accept what they were seeing. Old Wang recovered first, anger and embarrassment flushing his face. "What's going on?" he demanded. "You said your cousin was powerful and connected to Brother Hu. How is he kneeling like a child in public?" Yu Yu snapped back to reality as well, fury and regret twisting her features. She grabbed Old Wang and shoved him down to his knees, shouting, "Are you blind? That's Brother Hu. Why didn't you say Lin Yang was his brother? You nearly ruined me." Both of them dropped to their knees in front of Lin Yang, begging, "We were wrong. Please, let us go. We'll never do this again." A dozen people on the floor, pleading. If anyone passing by had seen it, they would have thought Lin Yang had bullied them. Lin Yang himself was surprised. He hadn't expected Brother Hu to have such pull, just a message and a presence, and these thugs were reduced to begging. Brother Hu had come because Lin Yang helped him with a stuck car. The favor had clearly been remembered. Lin Yang felt oddly flattered, but he also knew better than to let them walk away lightly. If they were left unpunished, they'd be back. He turned to Brother Hu. "Thanks for your concern. I'm fine, but this whole mess ruined my appetite. More importantly, my friend was hurt. Qin Jiwan even took a hit for me." Qin had indeed stepped in and taken the blow meant for Lin Yang. If Qin hadn't blocked it, Lin Yang would have been the one injured. That settled it. Those responsible had to pay. At Lin Yang's words, Brother Hu's hand shot out like lightning and slapped Scar across the face, hard. The sharp slaps echoed around the private room. Surprisingly, Scar didn't explode in fury. He seemed almost relieved, trembling as he took the punishment. When Brother Hu stopped, Scar whipped his head around and glared at his blonde-haired subordinates. The youngsters reacted at once. They dragged Old Wang and Yu Yu to their feet and began slapping them, accusing, "You're the ones who tricked Brother Scar into coming. If you hadn't lied, we wouldn't have been drawn here. You must take responsibility, pay for the trouble, and for this brother's stress and his buddy's medical costs." Old Wang and Yu Yu were beaten until their faces were red and their mouths bleeding. Between sobs, they kept begging, "We'll pay! We'll pay! Please stop!" Scar finally waved his men off. He looked at Lin Yang, guilt and contrition written across his face. "Big brother," he said, "I was deceived and I made a mistake. I'll personally give you another 50,000 to make up for it. Don't hate me." With trembling hands, he produced a bank card and pushed it toward Lin Yang. Brother Hu watched Lin Yang expectantly. "Is that enough punishment?" he asked. Lin Yang shook his head, smiling. "They've been punished. As long as they don't bother me again, I have no objections. Thank you, Brother Hu." Brother Hu's expression softened. Since Lin Yang doesn't mind, We'll let it drop today. He stood and clapped Lin Yang on the shoulder. You haven't eaten yet, have you? Come on, let's move to another private room and continue. There's nothing more important than a good meal. After Lin Yang and his companions left, Scar's face went dark. He turned on old Wang and Yu Yu, fury boiling over. Two idiots, he snarled. Do you have any idea who you offended? Brother whose brother isn't someone you provoke. You almost got me killed. He signaled his men, and they held old Wang and Yu Yu down while Scar rained punches and kicks on them. The two were beaten until their faces were a mass of bruises and their bodies bore footprints. They wailed, "Stop, you're going to kill us!" But Scar only grew more savage, venting every ounce of anger on them. Meanwhile, Lin Yang, Qin Jiyuan, and Brother Hu settled into a larger private room, bright, luxurious, lit by crystal chandeliers. The table was laid with fine china and dishes arrived quickly, steam and aroma filling the room. Halfway through the meal, Lin Yang excused himself to pay the bill. Brother Hu had arranged the whole thing, and Lin Yang felt it was right to treat him. Brother Hu, however, insisted on returning the favor. Lin Yang laughed and accepted. Full and satisfied, they eventually left. Qin Jiyuan sat in Lin Yang's car, still a little dazed by what had happened. Lin Yang, you're amazing, he said, eyes bright with admiration. I didn't expect you to know someone so powerful. If it weren't for you, I don't know how things would have ended tonight. Lin Yang drove with a small smile. Just luck. I happen to know Brother Hu. The next morning, Lin Yang found the compensation waiting. One 50,000 from Scar and another 50,000 from Old Wang and Yu Yu, a total of 100,000. The money itself wasn't the point. It was the punishment and the guarantee that they wouldn't dare provoke him again. He didn't split the money with Qin Jiyuan. He knew Qin would refuse outright, so he planned other ways to show his gratitude. After all, Qin had taken a hit for him. Time slipped by, and another week passed. On Sunday morning, Lin Yang woke to a system notification. Ding, this week's intelligence has been pushed. Please check it. Lin Yang opened the panel and saw he had received only 3 intelligence pushes that week. Luckily, he hadn't opened them yet. Once read, they couldn't be reset. The system had recently added a reset feature. After receiving intelligence, you could reset once as long as it hadn't been opened. Resetting would randomly change the number and value of items, and after using the reset function 3 times in total, a high-value intelligence item was guaranteed. High-value tips, like news of the Jinling community demolition or the sudden surge in foodie battery stock, had been worth a small fortune before. With only 3 items this week, a reset might well increase the haul. He hit the reset button. Ding! This week's intelligence has been successfully reset. The count jumped from 3 to 6, double. The reset button grayed out. The one-use rule applied. Lin Yang started reading. Weekly Intelligence 1, Walking 500,000. Recently, a group of foreigners entered Jing City posing as tourists to perform illegal surveys in the northeastern mining area, attempting to steal basic geographic and confidential geological data. Report them to the authorities. Capturing one person earns a reward of 500,000. He'd seen stories about the walking 500,000 online before. The people who discovered them were farmers, ride-hail drivers, delivery couriers, never him. Back then, he'd scan crowds, watch people on the street, hoping to spot someone suspicious. If you reported someone successfully, the reward could be 500,000. He'd never been lucky. One famous catch had even been a foreign female host on CVTV who'd been undercover for 20 years and was exposed by a slip on a show. He hadn't expected to get a tip like this now. He had to find them and report them immediately. Weekly Intelligence 2. The Jinling community demolition is proceeding quickly. All signatures were collected within 48 hours. Demolition will start on day 3. A jar of silver dollars, 100 coins, was dug up under the old camphor tree in the central garden. Among them is a Xuan San long-bearded dragon coin valued at 8 million. The burial depth is 20 centimeters, making extraction extremely easy. Holy crap. If not for the intelligence, who would think to find treasure during a dilapidated community's demolition? 20 centimeters under the soil, he could dig that out with a small shovel. He couldn't miss this. Even aside from the single 8 million coin, The other silver dollars would likely be worth hundreds or thousands apiece. 100 coins would easily top 100,000. He wanted to go right then and dig them up. But it was broad daylight. The central garden was full of elderly residents sitting under the trees, drinking tea and chatting all day. If he started digging now, he'd be seen, and whatever he found would no longer belong to him. He'd have to wait until night, when the place emptied, and pry them out stealthily. So far, 2 items, and both were potentially worth millions. Resetting had paid off. Weekly Intelligence 3 Speed, an international streamer, will appear in domestic live broadcasts. The last stop will be Xing City. Route: Mount Lu, Binjiang Park, Semenko, Mango TV Studio. Pre-positioning can generate a lot of traffic. Lin Yang knew Speed, the abstract, globe-trotting streamer who'd gone viral for a performance of Sunshine Rainbow White Horse. Lately, Speed had been doing domestic stops, and other streamers followed his route to pick up viewers. That kind of information was gold for online personalities, but it wasn't useful to Lin Yang. He moved on. Weekly Intelligence 4. Qin Jiyuan will suffer a sudden cerebral hemorrhage on Thursday night, life-threatening. Proactive preventive treatment can avert the danger. Qin Jiyuan had once taken a punch for him. Lin Yang owed him. This tip meant he had to warn Qin without sounding like a liar. If he told him bluntly, Qin wouldn't believe it. He needed a plausible way to get him into a hospital for a full checkup. If the hemorrhage would strike Thursday night, there might already be signs. He could invite Qin to a top-tier hospital under the pretext of gratitude. A comprehensive exam would pick up any hidden risk and allow for preventive treatment. That would be believable and effective. Weekly Intelligence 5. Foodie Battery's solid-state battery R&D and impending mass production news continue to ferment. The stock keeps hitting daily limits at opening. Many shareholders want to buy in, but can't. Those who already hold shares see a 20% increase daily. He'd already used all available funds to buy Foodie Battery shares when the first news broke. A week of daily limits had turned his 90 million into over 260 million, more than double, almost triple. If this continued, in another week his gains could swell several times over. A previous high-value intelligence had predicted an 8-fold return next month. With 10 trading days left this month, if the rise continued, it might exceed that. Something would almost certainly happen soon to halt the surge. But what? He would only know when it happened. Weekly Intelligence 6. Liu Xiangdong, Foodie Battery's second-largest shareholder, envies the company's continuous daily limits and wants to acquire more shares. He plans to use his held shares to sell and create panic among shareholders, then buy them back at a lower price. Prepare funds in advance to acquire more shares. Lin Yang snorted. Who would be foolish enough to sell now and try to trigger panic? Before the solid-state news, that tactic might have worked. Now everyone knew Foodie Battery's prospects were broad. Trying to foment a sell-off would likely only hand bargains to others, especially to someone with advanced intelligence and ready funds. Still, Liu Xiangdong might have other methods he hadn't revealed. A person holding that status wouldn't be completely reckless. Lin Yang didn't dwell on it. Today was the demolition signing day. He would get tens of millions in compensation. Between that, the silver dollars under the camphor tree, and the reward for catching the walking 500,000, he was looking at tens of millions more. That was more than enough to buy into the free float if anyone panicked and sold. If someone dared to dump shares, he'd scoop them up. Chapter 69. Catch Everything. It had been 3 weeks since the intelligence system upgraded from daily to weekly reports, and Lin Yang had received a total of 16 pieces. He glanced at the system experience readout. Weekly intelligence, 1,603,000. With another 1,400 points, the system would upgrade to monthly intelligence. Each weekly intelligence entry granted 100 points, so he needed 16 more pieces. If he was lucky, the upgrade could come in as little as 2 weeks. If luck ran cold and he only got 3 pieces a week, it would still take just 6 weeks, only a bit over a month. After skimming the latest intel, Lin already had a plan. The top priority this week was to acquire shares of Foodie Battery. Everyone knew that Foodie Battery was poised to become a trillion-yuan company. If he held a large stake now, his assets would surge. It was almost unbelievable that such shares were being sold off at this moment. Whatever the reason, he knew that missing this chance would make it very hard to assemble a large position later. He had to act. Buying shares required cash, and most of his money was already tied up in foodie. He needed more liquid funds. According to the intelligence, viable ways to get money quickly included reporting the Walking 500,000 group and finding the silver dollars hidden under the big tree in the community garden. Demolition compensation would only be available after signing the paperwork at work tomorrow. Today was Sunday, so that could wait. Other than cash, his second priority for the week was getting his roommate Qin Ziyuan a hospital checkup. Lin immediately bought a VIP full-body checkup package at the city's top tertiary hospital online. Then, he found Qin and told him it was a lottery prize that had to be used within 2 days. Qin had been feeling off, but had been avoiding exams because of the costs. When Lin handed him the voucher, he accepted it gratefully and thanked him repeatedly. Once that was handled, Lin drove northeast toward the old mine outside Qing City. The system had pointed to this mining area near Black Elk Peak, an abandoned mining zone with derelict ore factories, crumbling walls, and water-filled pits that glinted with an eerie beauty in the sun. It had become a magnet for outdoor enthusiasts and, tragically, the site of frequent accidents. Lin knew the place well from the news. During the 2-hour drive, his tension built with every kilometer. He slowed as he entered the mining area, eyes scouring the roadside like radar, not wanting to miss anything. Then he saw a cluster of blonde, blue-eyed foreigners gathered around someone lying on the ground, their gestures frantic. Foreign faces weren't unheard of in the inland city, but the professional exploration gear they carried, metallic, varied, gleaming cold in the sunlight, caught his attention. These weren't casual tourists. His heart kicked up a beat. The equipment, the time, the location, even the foreigner's appearance matched the system intelligence. The mine wasn't a usual hangout for foreigners. Their presence here, within the time frame suggested, they very well might be the Walking 500,000 group. Lin's fingers trembled slightly as he drew his phone to call the tip line. A man suddenly broke from the crowd and ran toward his car, shouting, "Help! Help! Help me!" he cried, then in halting Mandarin, "Help! One of our companions rolled down the hill while hiking and hit his head. It's bad. We can't find a car to the hospital. Can you take him?" Lin was about to refuse. Then he remembered the reward structure the system had shown. Reporting one member of the Walking 500,000 could earn 500,000 yuan in reward, and for particularly significant contributions, the payout might reach 5 million yuan. He weighed his options. If he called the authorities now, help would take time to arrive, and the group might scatter. If they escaped, his report might produce nothing, and his efforts would be wasted. But if he pretended to help and brought them directly to the police, he'd be turning them in red-handed. His contribution would be indisputable, and the reward would be much larger. He softened his expression and forced concern into his voice. "Okay, lift him into the car. I'll take him to the hospital." Relief and gratitude washed over the foreigners' faces. They rushed to place the injured man inside. 2 more climbed in to sit beside him. Lin noticed 3 others still outside, and a flicker of worry crossed his mind. He couldn't give them any chance to escape. The car was already tight, but he told himself that if the police saw he was bringing in people endangering national security, they would understand and go easy on any traffic violations. He waved the remaining 3 over. They hesitated, then squeezed in. Once everyone was settled, Lin adjusted his rearview mirror to watch their movements. He put the nearest police station into the navigation and, calm on the surface but taut inside, guided the car toward it. On the drive, the foreigners praised him in awkward Mandarin. "Brother, you are the kindest person we have ever met," one said. "We thank you on behalf of Peter." "Good people will be rewarded," another added. "You will surely be rewarded." Lin let a faint smile touch his lips. He wondered how they would feel when they realized he was taking them somewhere very different from the hospital. Chapter 70, all captured inside the Heimifeng police station. Director Xiao Zhongang sat behind his slightly battered desk, his brow deeply furrowed. He tapped his fingers on the wood in a steady, distracting rhythm. He had just ended a call with a former police academy colleague who had suggested they meet up. It was supposed to be a routine reunion, but the news his friend mentioned had hit him like cold water. His old classmates were being promoted one after another, transferred to important posts in the city, praised for big casework, climbing the ladder. Meanwhile, he was still stuck at this tiny Jaime Feng station, dealing with petty disputes and minor thefts, day after monotonous day. When he'd graduated from the academy, he'd been full of ambition, certain he would one day resolve shocking crimes and earn respect. Reality, however, had been a steady, soul-numbing drip of disappointment. The station's work was unglamorous. Small quarrels between neighbors, occasional shoplifts, routine reports. At first, he'd kept his hopes, thinking if he worked hard, his chance would come. Over the years, the monotony had worn him down. Now he went through the motions, clinging to the post that felt like a dead end. A sudden screech of tires cut through the quiet, snapping Xiao Zhanggang out of his reverie. He looked up in surprise. The station was usually so quiet, even a mouse would be noticed. Who could be arriving like that? He rose and peered through the slightly smudged window into the courtyard. A large SUV sat there, incongruous in the shabby yard. The driver's door opened, and a young, good-looking man stepped out and walked toward the reception. Could it be a new colleague? Xiao wondered. But before he could think further, the man had already reached the front door. Lin Yang had brought the SUV into the courtyard and slammed on the brakes. Inside, the foreigners he'd been driving with tensed. One of them asked suspiciously, "Weren't you taking us to the hospital? Why are we at a police station?" "My car ran out of gas," Lin Yang said calmly. "I had to stop here to ask for help." The SUV was a hybrid. Lin rarely filled the tank. The display did show a low fuel reading, and the foreigners accepted his explanation. They didn't suspect that they'd already been exposed. They took him for an ordinary passerby and let down their guard. Lin Yang stepped out and quickly surveyed the surroundings. He spotted the reception window and walked straight to it. Inside, a young officer sat behind the counter. Lin lowered his voice and leaned forward. "Officer, I need to report something. I think the people in that car are wanted suspects. Each has a 500,000 yuan bounty on them." The officer's relaxed expression sharpened. He sat up and asked, "Are you sure? Do you have any evidence?" Lin recounted, calmly and in detail, where he had encountered the group near the mine and what he'd seen. The professional surveying equipment they carried, the way they'd been probing the terrain, equipment tourists wouldn't have. The officer listened intently, jotting notes, pausing now and then to ask about the equipment's shape, color, and the foreigners' accents. The more Lin spoke, the grimmer the officer's face became. If Lin was right, this was a serious matter that needed to be escalated immediately. Xiao Zhanggang heard the report reach him. Worries about his stalled career evaporated into a flash of excitement. This could be the break he'd been waiting for. If these were wanted agents, arresting them could be a major achievement and possibly a promotion. Even if it turned out to be a false alarm, at worst, it would be an embarrassing mistake. He slammed his hand on the desk and called aloud, "Everyone, assemble!" Officers came running from every corner, gathering in the courtyard with focused, eager expressions. Xiao took charge at the head of the small team and briefed them crisply. "According to this report, the foreigners in that SUV are wanted suspects with 500,000 yuan bounties. We must act quickly and make sure none of them escapes. Move in and detain them." The officers nodded and spread out, surrounding the vehicle. Xiao stepped closer and called through the window, "People in the car, step out now for an inspection." The foreigners inside panicked. One of them pressed against the injured companion and shouted back through the glass, "We're taking him to the hospital. We can't get out. He's hurt." Xiao didn't waver. Through the window, he could see the equipment in the back seat. Oddly shaped metal cases that flashed coldly in the sun. They looked professional and expensive, another confirmation of Lin's claim. "Don't try to resist," he warned. "You're surrounded." The officers tightened their grips on their batons and moved in as one when Xiao gave the signal. The SUV doors were opened, and the foreigners were pulled out one by one. The wounded man was carried out, still groaning, and quickly secured. Under watchful gazes, they were escorted into the station's interrogation room. Xiao let out a long breath and relaxed for the first time in months. He turned to Lin Yang and, smiling with obvious relief and gratitude, said, "Young man, we owe you. You've made a major contribution to national security. On behalf of the station, thank you." He grasped Lin's hand and shook it firmly. Lin offered a modest smile. "Everyone should do their part. Protecting national security is everyone's responsibility." "We'll hand them over to the appropriate authorities for questioning," Xiao continued. "If it's confirmed they're wanted, you'll be eligible for a reward. Rest assured." He patted Lin on the shoulder and handed him a receipt. Lin inspected it, then pocketed it. 6 wanted suspects had been captured. At the minimum bounty of 500,000 yuan apiece, that meant 3 million yuan in total, and possibly more if the case proved more serious. Lin checked the time. It was late, and it would take a couple of hours to get back to where he needed to be. There was still one more task he planned to finish that night: dig up the silver dollars under the big tree in the community garden. Those coins were worth at least 8 or 9 million yuan. After a quick thanks, he drove away. Back in the Black Elk Peak Mountains, a team of several dozen, well-equipped, hunted the area for the same group. Their leader barked orders: "We cannot let them escape. If they leak that top-secret survey data, our losses will be immeasurable." His phone vibrated. He checked it and read the brief message: "All individuals have been apprehended and are currently held in the Haimifeng police station's interrogation room." He exhaled, relief flooding him. "I didn't expect that small station to be capable," he muttered. "They actually captured them before we could." Lin Yang's new house in Binjiang Bay had already been furnished and was ready for him to move into. Still, the latest tip said a jar of Yuan Datou silver coins had been buried under a large tree in the central garden of Jinling Community, so he decided to stay in Jinling Community for one more day, determined to find it. After sending those suspicious foreigners to the police station, he drove back. As he stepped out of the car, his phone rang. The caller ID showed Qin Jiwan. Lin Yang answered. Qin Jiwan's voice trembled with gratitude and relief. Thanks to the physical exam package Lin Yang had given him, a checkup had revealed a serious problem. His blood pressure had topped 200, and the doctor said it was life-threatening, so they admitted him immediately. He kept repeating that if not for the checkup and for Lin Yang, he might not be alive. Lin Yang felt a warm sense of relief. The last time danger had come, Qin Ziyuan had taken a kick for him without hesitation. He had never forgotten that kindness. He comforted Qin Ziyuan, urged him to rest and recover, and then hung up. It wasn't dark enough yet to dig in the central garden, and Lin Yang was a little hungry, so he went to a nearby restaurant. He ordered a few simple dishes, filled his stomach, and then bought a small shovel at a general store on his way back. He planned to wait until the garden cleared out. Based on past experience, most of the elderly folks wouldn't leave until after 10. He kept himself up, checking the time until midnight. At 12 o'clock, he felt it was safe. He picked up the new shovel and slipped out. Moonlight poured across the community roads, and everything was quiet in a way that made the night feel heavy. When he reached the central garden, it was exactly as he expected. Deserted, leaves whispering in a gentle breeze. He leapt into the flower bed, crawled to the big tree, and began to dig. Soil turned up under the blade, and sweat beaded on his forehead. Pit after pit, minute after minute, the coins did not appear, but he trusted the tip and kept at it. A sharp metallic clang suddenly broke the night. His heart jumped, and his hands moved faster. He cleared the surrounding soil and revealed a ceramic jar, the kind people used to keep eggs in during the 80s and 90s. His shovel had nicked the lid and cracked it open. Peering through the opening, he saw the jar packed with coins. Blackened on the surface, several times larger than a 1 yuan piece, Yuan Datou silver coins. Joy rose in him. Then a voice cut through the stillness. "Young man, what are you doing?" Lin Yang spun around. A thin old man stood at the edge of the flower bed, craning his neck to peer in. Lin Yang cursed his luck silently. This late at night, why was someone still wandering the garden? If word got out that priceless coins had been dug up, the treasure would no longer be his. The thought of losing millions for the sake of a civic award and a small bonus made his teeth grind. Quickly, he blurted, "Digging dirt, just taking some back to plant flowers." It was dark. He hoped the old man couldn't see the jar. When he glanced back a second later, the old man had vanished as if he had never been there. A cold wind swept past. Lin Yang didn't wait to think. He hurriedly dug the jar free, slipped it into the bag he had brought, refilled the hole, and raced home. Once inside, he bolted the door and let out a long breath. In his room, he set the jar on the bed and poured the coins out, then began to count. There were 100 pieces in total, 99 yuan datu silver coins, and 1 Xuan San long beard dragon coin. He pulled out his phone and checked current prices. A yuan datu silver coin was going for about 1,100 yuan each, so the 99 pieces were worth roughly 100,000 yuan. The Xuan San long beard dragon was worth far more, around 8 million yuan. In less than half an hour, Lin Yang had acquired over 8 million yuan worth of coins. He felt a light-headed thrill at the sum. With the coins safely in his possession, his next task was to figure out how to sell them. Fortunately, yuan datu silver coins were relatively common on the market, so moving the 99 pieces shouldn't attract too much attention. At first light the next morning, Lin Yang was already on his feet and heading for the demolition command center at the community gate. Today was the first day residents could sign demolition contracts for Jinling community. The general compensation figures had been posted on the community bulletin board the day before, but Lin Yang hadn't bothered to look. Those notices were for outsiders. The exact amount for each person only appeared when you went in to sign. If you liked the number, you signed. If not, you delayed until you were satisfied. Intelligence the day before, however, had suggested everyone would sign within 2 days, which meant most residents were already very happy with the offer. Rumor had it, Jinling was a model urban renewal project, and everything was being handled to the highest standard. That explained the generous compensation. By the time he arrived at the command center, a crowd had already gathered in small, excited clusters, comparing notes about the payouts. The moment he stepped into view, conversation died down, and several heads turned to him with open envy. "Look, it's him. He bought all 10 of the houses that were on the market here before the demolition," someone called out. 10 houses. One house alone is worth millions. 10 houses. He's completely loaded now, another said. Those people who sold to him must be kicking themselves. Old Wang even did a live stream trying to drum up viewers, and he got crushed by the bidding. People sold willingly. "I haven't seen Old Wang for days. Where did he go?" "He's hospitalized. I heard he got seriously hurt." Lin Yang heard the chatter and only shook his head. He couldn't keep a low profile anymore. Old Wang's livestream had made him famous in the neighborhood. He ignored the whispers and walked straight into the command center, found the official in charge, and said politely, "Hello, I'm here to sign the contract, but before I sign, I'd like to go over the compensation policy in detail." A staff member greeted him warmly, brought over a folder of documents, and began to explain. "Compensation for this demolition is based only on the area of the house," the staff member said. "Age of the building, decoration level, none of that affects the payout. The larger the area, the higher the compensation." Lin Yang listened closely, inwardly pleased. Most of the units he'd bought were the oldest and most rundown in the community. A scheme that ignored age and decoration was almost perfectly tailored to his advantage. "Do you understand?" the staff member asked after finishing. Lin Yang nodded and handed over his ID. The staff typed, printed a contract, and slid it across the desk. "Please read it carefully," the staff said. "If everything's in order, sign. If you have questions or concerns, let me know." He read the contract line by line. It listed his ownership of 10 units in Jinling community, Building 3, Unit 402, Building 17, Unit 601, and so on, with individual areas of 80 square meters, 92 square meters, etc. The contract totaled the 10 units at 1,034 square meters, and citing demolition order number 3, set the compensation at 48,321,429.24 yuan. The figure matched what Lin Yang had already estimated from comparing compensation standards in nearby projects. No wonder everyone had signed so quickly. He didn't hesitate. He picked up the pen and signed. The staff member blinked in surprise. Many people had come that morning. all cautious and unwilling to be the first to commit. They were waiting to see what happened. As a flagship renewal project, the standards were fixed and generous. There wasn't much room to negotiate. Still, to encourage cooperation, the administration had offered a 100,000 yuan incentive to each of the first 10 signers. No one had taken the plunge until now. "Congratulations, Mr. Lin Yang," the staff said with an approving smile. "You're the first resident to sign. That earns you a 100,000 yuan bonus." Another clerk appeared with a thick stack of cash and a receipt. Lin Yang signed for it and accepted the money. The watching crowd broke into a chorus of surprise and envy. He bought 10 houses at once. He must have connections and confidence. If he signed, it must be legit. "I want to sign too," someone shouted. "Give me a contract. I don't want to miss that 100 grand. People surged forward, clamoring for forms. Those a beat too slow cursed their luck. "Damn, I missed out on the bonus," someone moaned. After the fuss, Lin Yang left the command center quietly, the 100,000 yuan tucked away and the larger compensation already secured on paper. There remained one other thing he wanted to take care of, that jar of silver coins. He'd checked online and found the Xing City antique trading market was in Qingshuitang. He walked back to the community, got into his car, fired it up, and drove toward Qingshuitang. Chapter 73. You've been blackmailed. When Lin Yang stepped into Qingshuitang antique market, he was swallowed up by the bustle. The market ran along a single street, flanked by 2 rows of shops with stalls set up in front of them. The goods dazzled the eye. Porcelain glowed with a warm sheen. Jade gave off a soft halo. Scrolls of calligraphy and painting unfurled like long rivers of history. Bronzes suggested the weight of ages, and even film cameras from the 1980s and 90s sat among the wares. The street was packed. Buyers and sellers jammed it to a standstill, while vendors' shouts rose and fell into the unique music of the bazaar. "Look, authentic Tang San Kai, cheap!" A middle-aged man with a thick accent called, holding a brightly colored figurine high to catch the sun. Nearby, an old man in reading glasses sat fanning himself slowly with a folding fan, his voice calm and confident. Ancestral blue and white porcelain. For those who know, price negotiable. A young seller with a megaphone played a recorded ad. "Don't miss out. Ming and Qing coins on sale. Limited quantity. First come, first served." The recorded voice cut sharp through the clamor. Lin Yang threaded his way through the crowd carrying a black garbage bag that held a jar full of coins. There were 99 yuan dato silver coins in the jar. Yuan dato coins were common, and their market price was transparent, about 1,100 yuan apiece, so he wasn't worried about being cheated in a casual sale. The most valuable piece, the Xuansan long-bearded dragon silver coin worth 8 million yuan, he had taken out separately and kept close to his body. That one could not be lost. He had no intention of selling the big coin right away. You compare prices when buying, and you do much the same when selling. You needed an honest buyer for an 8 million yuan coin, so he planned to sell the common coins first as a test, then choose a trustworthy shop to handle the Xuansan coin. A vendor greeted him as he walked in. "Brother, this bronze tripod's from the Zhou dynasty. Want a look?" The seller held up an ancient-looking bronze tripod with a proud smile. Lin Yang smiled inwardly. Bronze relics weren't something you found on a street stall. Up close, it was a 4-ram-zun straight out of a textbook. If it was from the Zhou dynasty, it would be astonishing. He'd done his homework before coming. Most stalls sold crafts passed off as antiques. Genuine pieces, if any, were usually small and low value, common copper coins. The vendor's business model was obvious: pester customers into overpaying for fakes. As the saying went, after 3 years with no customers, one sale will keep you going for 3 years. Those stall vendors weren't Lin Yang's target. The Xuansan coin was far beyond their reach. He headed for the proper shops lining the street. He picked a shop at random and stepped inside. The owner greeted him warmly. "Young man, feel free to look around." The owner poured tea, and Lin Yang politely declined. "Do you buy yuan dato silver coins?" he asked. "We do," the owner said, "but there are so many of those coins that their value's low." He took a few coins Lin Yang pulled from the jar and examined them. He frowned, shook his head and said, "These are scratched and incomplete. That kills the resale value. If you insist on selling, I could at most offer 100 yuan per coin. Lin Yang sneered under his breath and mentally crossed that shop off his list. The market price was transparent. There was no reason to accept 1/10 of it. He took his coins back and left. Hey, young man, if you're sincere, we can add a bit. 110. The owner called after him, but Lin Yang walked away without looking back. He visited several more shops and kept getting the same story. For coins worth 1,100 yuan each, the best offer he heard all day was 500. Lin Yang had never been deep in the antiques trade before, but he quickly learned how murky the waters were. He kept testing with the common coins, trying to find a trustworthy buyer, but half a day passed and he found nothing he trusted. Just when he was about to give up, a surge of people drew his attention. A crowd had formed 3 deep on either side around something, and everyone was talking. Curious, he pushed to the front and peered in. An old man with white hair lay collapsed on the ground. His face was paper pale, sweat beaded on his brow, eyes squeezed shut with pain as his brows knit into a deep crease. He murmured weakly, "Medicine, the medicine in my pocket," voice thin as smoke, easily drowned by the market noise. The people around hesitated. A fashionable young man with his hands in his pockets leaned forward, then pulled back. "If I get scammed, that'll be my month's salary gone," he muttered. A middle-aged woman with a vegetable basket looked torn. "He's pitiful, but I've got a family waiting for dinner. If I get involved and it becomes a trouble, I can't explain it," she said, then left, glancing back every few steps. Others stood at a distance, whispering about the risk of helping strangers. "You have to be careful helping old people these days. Too many scams in the news." The old man lay helpless, hand trembling at his side like a final plea. His lips cracked as he tried to speak, but his voice faded. Just then, a woman in her 20s stepped out from the crowd. She knelt beside him without hesitation, patted his shoulder, and said softly, "Grandpa, don't worry, I'll help you find your medicine." The onlookers warned her, "Girl, don't get involved. Be careful, you're not being set up." There are too many of those stories. Don't let good intentions get you into trouble. But she ignored them. She reached into the old man's pocket and found a small bottle labeled Suxiaojuxinwan, quick-acting, heart-saving pills. "Grandpa, is this it?" she asked. The old man nodded. She unscrewed the cap, poured out a few pills, supported his head, and fed them to him. A nearby stall lent a cup of water, and she helped him sip it down. After a few moments, his color returned and his breathing steadied. She helped him sit on the shop steps to rest. Once he was clearly better, she prepared to leave. "Chen Qingqing?" Lin Yang called out, recognizing her. She looked up at his voice, a flicker of surprise in her eyes. "Lin Yang, what are you doing here?" They exchanged brief greetings. Chen Qingqing said she'd come to the market to find a gift for her grandfather and to see if there were any interesting trinkets. Lin Yang smiled. "I brought some small, inexpensive things I'm planning to sell." At that moment, the old man suddenly lurched to his feet and grabbed Chen Qingqing's arm. The crowd went silent, then erupted. People leaned in, casting accusing looks and whispering. "See, I told you, this girl didn't listen. Now she's been scammed by this old man." Chapter 74. This jar is the treasure. Lin Yang was about to step forward and pull the old man away when the man hurriedly let go of Chen Qingqing and said, "You've got the wrong idea. I'm not some old swindler. How could I repay kindness with enmity? This young lady just saved me. I wanted her contact information so I could thank her properly." Chen Qing shook her head. "No need. I didn't do much." "How can you say that? If it weren't for you just now, I wouldn't be alive." With that, Chen Qing reluctantly left her contact details with the old man. Only then did he leave, satisfied. The crowd, deprived of any further spectacle, gradually dispersed. Lin Yang laughed. "Weren't you afraid he'd try to swindle you when you rushed in like that?" Chen Qingqing smiled. "No, I know him. He runs Shangchun Restaurant. It's the biggest antique shop in Xing City. He has so many treasures, he wouldn't swindle me over a little money." Lin Yang nodded, understanding. He suddenly remembered he still needed to sell the Yuan Dato silver coins and hadn't found the right buyer. Shangchun might be a good option. "Is Shangchun reputable? Do they do honest business?" "They're a little pricier than other shops," Chen Qingqing said, "but they're fair and never sell fakes. They don't offer the highest price for acquisitions, but they don't cheat, so everyone trusts them. That settled it. Lin Yang decided to take the coins to Xiangchun. Chen Qingqing understood immediately and offered to accompany him. She led him through the thinning crowd to an old-style building with a plaque above the entrance, Xiangchun Restaurant. They were barely inside when a staff member stepped forward. "Gentlemen, please take a look around. Let me know if you need anything." "I want to sell some Yuan Datu silver coins," Lin Yang said. The attendant nodded. "Right this way." He led them up to the second floor, ushered them to a table, and poured tea. Then he asked Lin Yang what he had to sell. Lin Yang set the black garbage bag on the table, pulled out the ceramic jar, removed the lid, and revealed the coins. The attendant picked up a coin, examined it carefully. "Not bad. There are a lot of Yuan Dato silver coins out there, but it's rare to find ones in this condition. We can offer 1,000 yuan per coin at most." Lin Yang was pleased. He'd visited 7 or 8 antique shops before. All had lowballed him, offers between 100 and 500 yuan, claiming the coins were in poor condition. Xiangchun's offer of 1,000 yuan was sincere. With market value around 1,100 yuan each, 1,000 was fair. "All right," Lin Yang said. "Let's do it. There are 99 coins. Please count them." "Okay." The attendant began taking coins out of the jar one by one to inspect and count. Half an hour later, he looked up. 99 coins, all in very good condition. At 1,000 yuan apiece, the total is 99,000 yuan. Any issues? "No," Lin Yang replied. After the sale was confirmed, the attendant transferred the payment directly to Lin Yang's account. No sooner had the transfer completed than a voice rang out. "Hey, hey, hey! What are you doing?" someone cried. Lin Yang turned. It was the old man Chen Qingqing had helped earlier. He stared at the ceramic jar as if he'd found the most precious thing on earth. "You're wasting a treasure. How can you use such a fine thing just to hold silver coins? You even put it in a garbage bag." His eyes bulged. He reached out, trembling, and ran his fingers along the jar's surface as gently as if touching a relic. His lips quivered. "A treasure, a treasure," he kept saying, his voice thick with emotion. Gripping the jar, the old man began to babble excitedly, educating both Lin Yang and Chen Qingqing. "Do you know this is Yuan blue and white porcelain? Top tier among ceramics." Lin Yang hadn't been versed in antiques, but he had heard of Yuan blue and white ware. Every piece was astronomically expensive. Complete, well-preserved examples could fetch tens of millions. Especially fine ones could go for hundreds of millions. Judging by the old man's reverence, this ordinary-looking jar might indeed be a rare treasure, and its value could be very high. Chapter 75, 400 million. The old man held the pottery jar in both hands, his voice trembling with excitement. "Do you know what this is? Yuan Dynasty blue and white porcelain." He stroked the jar as he spoke. During the Yuan Dynasty, with its vast territory, open Silk Road, and flourishing maritime trade, artisans had access to high-quality cobalt from West Asia, Somali blue. Fired, that cobalt gives a deep, rich color with distinctive rust spots. That's the basis of the Yuan blue and white style. He continued, eyes never leaving the jar. The underglaze painting technique was already mature in the Yuan. They could paint on the body and fire it successfully, greatly increasing output. The Mongols liked blue and white, so it fit their aesthetic perfectly. All these factors pushed Yuan blue and white to become the mainstream of the time. Lin Yang and Chen Qingqing listened, amazed. They had assumed this jar was nothing more than a container for silver dollars. They hadn't expected such a history. The old man's account of Yuan porcelain was eloquent and passionate until suddenly he stopped. He frowned, staring at the jar's design with a look of confusion. "Wait, why does this pattern say Ghost Valley descends the mountain? I remember a Ghost Valley descends the mountain." Jar sold at Christie's London in 2005 for 231 million RMB and went to a famous collector. How could there be another one? Lin Yang felt a chill. Could the jar be a fake? How could such a treasure be used to hold coins and buried? The old man seemed spellbound, muttering as he turned the jar over and over. He leaned in close, tracing the texture with his fingers, then brought out a magnifying glass, examining every inch. He exposed the base and peered closely. The body was coarse, with visible pores and tiny black particles scattered naturally, typical of unrefined Yuan-era clay. He nodded. Yuan clay wasn't finely washed. These pores and particles are exactly what we'd expect. He ran his hand over the glaze. This glaze is warm and smooth as jade, perfectly lustrous, difficult to fake. Next, he inspected the blue and white pigment. In the denser areas, rust spots appeared, irregular and slightly concave, signatures of Somali cobalt. A flicker of surprise crossed his face. Modern fakes can't reproduce that natural haloing and these rust spots. He studied the decoration. The composition of the figures and lines was balanced and natural. Look at the expressions, the folds of the clothes. Every detail shows the superb skill of Yuan artisans. The decoration has layers, 7 or 8 levels here, intricate but not chaotic, with clear foreground and background. Finally, the old man examined the manufacturing techniques. After a careful, thorough inspection, he sighed, relief and certainty on his face. It's authentic. This is a Yuan blue and white Ghost Valley descends the mountain jar. From the body and glaze to the pigment, decoration, and manufacture, everything matches, and it's so well preserved, a truly rare treasure. His eyes shone. He turned to Lin Yang with urgency. Young man, this piece is priceless. One sold for 231 million a decade ago. Now it's only more valuable. I have an old friend. He's obsessed with Yuan blue and white. Would you consider selling this to him? Lin Yang felt his heart race. What had seemed an ordinary jar had become an extraordinary windfall, exactly when he needed money to buy more Foodie battery shares. He didn't hesitate. If the price is right, he said. The old man smiled, relieved. Wait here. I'll call right now. He stepped aside and dialed. Lin Yang couldn't hear the other voice, but the old man's tone was deferential and serious, clearly speaking to someone important. He frowned now and then, nodded, then finally hung up and returned with a delighted look. My friend will pay 400 million for this jar. How does that sound? 400 million. Lin Yang's breath caught. That was 150 million more than the Christie's price 10 years ago. Outrageously generous. He swallowed his excitement and kept his face steady. Deal, he said. The old man beamed and handed over a check for 400 million. You're this young lady's boyfriend, right? She helped me out earlier. If it were anyone else, I might have haggled, though the jar is indeed worth this much. Lin Yang realized he was benefiting from Chen Qingqing's earlier kindness. The old man then handed him a business card with only a name and phone number, Lin Bian. Lin Yang was amused that the dealer shared his surname. Lin Bian smiled. This is my private number. If you have anything else to sell, call me anytime. Lin Yang looked at the card, thinking of the many antiques the intelligence system might help him acquire. Selling through Lin Bian would be a good channel. Transaction complete, Lin Yang and Chen Qingqing left Xiangchen restaurant together. Sunlight warmed them as they walked. Lin Yang felt a swell of gratitude. He turned to Chen Qingqing. Qingqing, I owe you. If you hadn't saved Boss Lin, I'd never have found this. Let me treat you to lunch. Properly thank you. Chen Qingqing smiled brightly. Okay, I know a great place. You'll like it. They went to a cozy, art-filled restaurant, wooden tables, soft lighting, paintings on the walls. Lin Yang pulled out a chair for her and sat. He pushed the menu across. You pick. Order whatever you like. She ordered a few signature dishes without hesitation. Over the meal, they laughed and shared stories, celebrating their unexpected windfall. Lin Yang raised his glass. Qingqing, really, thank you. If not for you, I don't know how long I'd have waited to sell those silver dollars. I never imagined that jar could be a real yuan piece. Chen Qingqing blushed, took a sip of juice, and said, Don't be like that. You were lucky too. I'm just glad I could help. After lunch, they walked to the parking lot. Lin Yang looked at her earnestly. Today was amazing. If you ever need anything, come to me. She nodded, smiling. Sure, same to you. They waved goodbye and drove off in opposite directions. Lin Yang sat behind the wheel replaying the day like a dream. He felt the business card in his pocket and thought how useful it might be for future sales. Then he remembered he still had a single silver dollar he'd kept separate, worth 8 million. In all the excitement, he'd forgotten about it. He decided he'd keep it on him for a few days and then visit the shop to cash it in. With the demolition contract signed and the jar sold for 400 million, things were looking a lot better. He drove back to Binjiang Bay, parked, and dialed his mother's number. Chapter 76. 5 Killer Features. Fenghuang County, Phoenix Village. It was just past 3 in the afternoon. Lin Weigo and his wife, Yang Keixia, stood at the village entrance, waiting for the bus to the county town. Today was their second uncle's 80th birthday, and the family was holding a banquet at a restaurant there. They were in high spirits, but a little anxious. "Why isn't the car here yet? I hope we don't miss second uncle's birthday," Yang Keixia muttered, glancing down the road. Lin Weigo patted her shoulder. "Don't worry, it'll come soon." Still, his toes tapped the ground with impatience. Just then a new car kicked up a cloud of dust and pulled up beside them. Zhang Daqiang from the same village slammed on the brakes and the tires squealed as the car stopped. He rolled down the window, beaming. "Brother Lin, where are you two headed?" he called. Lin Weigo turned, smiled, and answered, "To the county town, second uncle's birthday banquet." "Oh, I'm going there too. Hop in, I'm headed that way," Zhang Daqiang insisted, waving them over. Lin Weigo started to refuse politely. "No, it's all right. The bus will be here soon. We can wait." "Nonsense, it's on the way. Get in," Zhang Daqiang pressed, still smiling. He unbuckled his seatbelt as if to get out and help them in. They didn't want to be rude, so Lin Weigo and Yang Keixia climbed into the back seat. "You're too kind, Daqiang," Yang Keixia said gratefully as she settled in. "Otherwise, we'd have to wait a while." "We're from the same village. No trouble at all," Zhang Daqiang replied. Once on the road, Zhang Daqiang couldn't resist pointing out his new car. "Look at this model. Asian Dragon. It's got 5 killer features. Leather steering wheel, leather seats, leather gear shift, power front seats, and 60/40 reclining rear seats. Felt comfortable as soon as you sat down, didn't it?" He patted the steering wheel like it was a prized possession, eyes shining. Lin Weigo ran a hand over the seats. "Leather, no wonder. Comfortable, worth every penny." Yang Keixia nodded. "Much nicer than the bus. You've got good taste, Daqiang." Zhang Daqiang straightened up proudly. "And this screen, an 8-inch color display with smart navigation. Tell it where to go, and it plans the route for you. There's a radio, too. It can pick up over a dozen stations." He turned on the radio and quickly tuned to a music station. Melody drifted through the cabin, and he bobbed his head along, humming, clearly pleased with himself. "When I bought this, it was love at first sight. Pricey, sure, but it's a foreign make. Can't compare to local brands." "You did well," Lin Weigo said with a smile. "People like this brand for a reason." "My son Xiaojun bought it for my 60th birthday," Zhang Daqiang said, adding with a grin. "He wanted to buy me one before, but I thought gasoline cars were more reliable. He insisted." "He's a good son," Yang Keixia responded. "Nice to see filial kids." Just then, Yang Keixia's phone rang. She saw Lin Yang's name on the screen, and her face lit up. "Xiao Yang," she answered. "Mom, everything's done here. I'll be coming home in a couple of days," came her son's voice. Yang Keixia almost trembled with happiness. "Really? That's wonderful. Tell me what you want to eat, and I'll make it. The free-range chickens are fat. I'll stew one. I saved your favorite cured meat for you." "You don't have to make anything special. I like everything at home," Lin Yang said. Her son hadn't been home in over 2 years. The news brought tears to her eyes. She turned to Lin Weigo with a bright smile and, still on the phone, asked, "Which train are you taking? Your father and I will pick you up." "No need. I'll drive back myself. Just wait at home," he answered. "All right. Drive safely. If you get tired, stop and rest," she warned, motherly as ever. After she hung up, Yang Keixia grabbed her husband's hand, face beaming. "Old man, Xiao Yang's coming back in a couple of days." "Good, good," Lin Weigo said, grinning. Zhang Daqiang had overheard part of the call and chimed in. "I heard your Lin Yang bought a car too. My son's got a BZ3 hybrid, lots of tech. He wanted me to take one, but I'm old-fashioned. Still, buying a car so soon after graduating, commendable." Lin Weigo shrugged. "I don't know much about it. The kid never told us. As long as he likes it." "At least it gets him where he needs to go," Zhang Daqiang said, with a faint air of superiority toward domestic models. Before long, they arrived at the county town, and the car eased to a stop in front of the restaurant. Lin Weigo and Yang Keixia thanked Zhang Daqiang, stepped out, and went inside to join the celebration. Chapter 77. We Became Neighbors. Lin Weigo and Yang Keixia stepped into the restaurant and spotted their second uncle in the crowd. They hurried over, offered a red envelope with smiling faces, and bowed politely. Second uncle, may your blessings be as vast as the eastern sea, your longevity match the southern mountains, and happy birthday. Their second uncle accepted the envelope, his eyes crinkling with a broad smile. He nodded repeatedly and urged them to sit, saying they'd start eating once everyone arrived. Relatives filtered in one after another until the table was full and the room buzzed with conversation. The eldest aunt, pride all over her face, opened the boasting with excitement. My son's really made something of himself. He bought a big house in the county seat not long ago. From now on, your aunt and I can go to the county seat and live comfortably. Not to be left out, the second aunt added quickly, my daughter isn't bad either. She just bought a new imported sedan. The performance and the look are impeccable. The third uncle lifted his teacup, sipped, and said slowly, my son just passed the civil service exam. That's an iron rice bowl. Stable, respectable work. Life's only going to get better. The fourth aunt, who had been listening quietly, could no longer hold back. She slapped a hand on her thigh and said excitedly, that's nothing. My son opened a little shop. I was worried at first, but business has boomed these past 2 years. He's making much more than before. One by one, everyone touted their children's achievements, each face glowing with pride. The whole restaurant took on an air of one-upmanship as family after family tried to outshine the others. Then someone steered the praise toward Lin Yang. Lin Yang graduated from a top university, right? His job must be great. Otherwise, why hasn't he been home in 2 years? A relative asked with genuine curiosity. Lin Weigo and Yang Keisha smiled politely. Lin Weigo replied with quiet pride, he's doing well. He's been very busy with work these past 2 years, which is why he hasn't come back. He'll be driving home in a couple of days now that he has some free time. At the mention of him driving back, ears around the table perked up. The eldest aunt's eyes lit, and she enthused. Oh, he even bought a car. He must be doing well. When he comes back, don't forget to invite us all. It's been years since we saw him. Yang Kexia nodded. Don't worry. When Xiaoyang comes back, we'll treat everyone to a meal and have a proper gathering. Lin Weiguo echoed her, and the mood at the table grew even more animated. Xing City, Binjiang Bay Community. Lin Yang ended the call and rode the elevator up. After facial recognition, the door unlocked and he pushed it open. This was an 800-square-meter riverside apartment in Binjiang Bay, the place he'd officially moved into today. The minimalist interior was bright and expansive, every corner exuding quiet luxury. Floor-to-ceiling windows opened onto a 270-degree view of the Xiang River, the distant skyline rising in orderly lines of modern towers. The river shimmered. The city looked prosperous. He walked the apartment with a slow, stunned gaze. Not long ago, he'd lived in a tiny, crumbling rented room, peeling paint, cracked windows taped together, a rusty lock that needed force to open. The bed groaned as if it might collapse, the floor sloped and required careful steps. Now, in barely half a month, his life had taken a radical turn. Standing there, it all felt like a dream. He sank onto the sofa and took the check for 400 million from his pocket, the proceeds from selling antiques. First order of business was cashing it and depositing the money so Hu Qian could take over all of Foodie Battery's shares on the market. Intelligence suggested Liu Xiangdong, Foodie's second-largest shareholder, would try to panic the market by dumping shares. They planned to buy up what he unloaded. The short-term plan could multiply the investment many times over. After that, he needed to stop by the mall and pick up some health supplements for his parents before going home. The next morning, sunlight slipped through the curtains and warmed his face. He woke refreshed, showered in the gleaming bathroom, dressed in casual clothes, and headed out. First stop, the bank. As he reached for the elevator button, the opposite door opened and a familiar figure stepped out. It was Chen Qingqing. Suddenly it made sense why the layout felt familiar when he first toured the place. Her apartment was right across the hall. He remembered envying her when he'd visited over 2 weeks ago. She'd been so young and already living in one of the city's top residences. He hadn't expected to end up a neighbor. What a coincidence. So you're right across from me, he greeted warmly. I didn't expect we'd be neighbors. Chen Qingqing's smile brightened. Her eyes sparkled. She thought to herself, I knew it. because of you. Otherwise, how could I have let my father give up an apartment like this? Then she answered aloud, "What a small world. From now on, we're neighbors. We can help each other out." Her gaze lingered on him for a beat. "You're heading out so early. Where to?" Lin Yang told her the truth. "First to the bank to cash a check, then to the mall to buy a few things to take back to my hometown." "You're going back to your hometown?" Chen Qingqing's eyebrows rose and a trace of nostalgia softened her face. "I'd like to see where I used to live. Can I hitch a ride with you?" Lin Yang didn't hesitate. "Of course, it'll be more fun with you along." In the elevator, Chen Qingqing suddenly brightened. "How about you let me come shopping with you? I want to visit Teacher Wang." Lin Yang paused a moment, then smiled. Wang teacher, their middle school homeroom teacher, had been kind and wise, always listening and guiding them. He'd been the one to steady Lin Yang when he felt ashamed of his family's poverty and helped him find confidence. Gratitude filled Lin Yang's chest. "All right," he said. "I'll buy an extra gift. We should visit Teacher Wang together. We can't forget how he helped us." Chapter 78. Hold Your Thighs Tight. Lin Yang drove to the Binjiang branch of Xingcheng Bank. Before he could reach for the door, Zhang Jun hurried out to meet him, enthusiasm all over his face, as if a single second's delay might ruin everything. Several middle-aged men in sharp suits followed closely behind, expressions solemn and steps perfectly in sync. Zhang Jun opened the car door for Lin Yang with exaggerated deference, dropping into a deep, formal bow and gesturing for them to enter, as if conducting a ceremony. "Mr. Lin, you finally arrived. We were waiting for you." Lin Yang blinked. Zhang Jun's formality was a touch surprising. He and Chen Qingqing climbed out, and almost immediately the group swarmed around them. The man at the front, beaming with a practiced warmth, stepped forward and shook Lin Yang's hand firmly. "Mr. Lin, welcome, welcome. I'm Wang Bin, branch manager of Xingcheng Bank, Binjiang. Call me Xiao Wang. I'll take care of everything today." He was at least twice Lin Yang's age, but in front of them he was all humility and attentiveness. Lin Yang exchanged polite pleasantries and followed where Wang led. Wang chatted nonstop, warm, respectful invitations up to the VIP room. Once inside, Wang smiled and said, "Mr. Lin and this lady, please have a seat. Anything you need, just say the word." They sank into a soft sofa. Zhang Jun hurried in with plates of fruit and pastries, arranging them carefully on the coffee table. Lin Yang glanced at them and couldn't help noticing the difference from his last visit. Previously, the spread had been simple: apples, bananas. Now the plates were full of luxury items: plump, golden cherries, each like a little orb, ruby-red Roman grapes that gave off a heavy, fruity scent. These weren't ordinary supermarket offerings. They were high-end specialty fruits, some varieties retailing for over 1,000 yuan per jin. Lin Yang understood why. A 400 million yuan check was not something a branch treated lightly. He had other plans after the transfer. He would return to his hometown and buy health supplements for his parents, so he got straight to the point. "I want to cash this check, branch manager Wang. How should we proceed?" Wang's smile deepened. "Mr. Lin, Zhang Jun briefed me in detail yesterday. Under normal procedures, a cashing of this scale needs a week's notice, but this is a priority for us. We'll handle it through special procedures." He took the 400 million yuan check from Lin Yang, set it on the table, and leaned in to inspect every detail: issue date, amounts in figures and words, payee, signature and seal, nodding and murmuring approval. "Issue date's fine, figures and words match, signature and seal are clear. Next, we'll need ID verification," he said, looking up with a smile. Lin Yang handed over his ID without hesitation. Wang took it with both hands, placed it on the reader, and compared the screen to the card with meticulous care. "This is a standard check, sir. It'll only take a moment." When verification passed, Wang slid a transfer form across the table. "Please fill in the account information for where you want this money transferred," Lin Yang wrote carefully. Wang watched as if every stroke mattered. When he reviewed the completed form, he breathed a small sigh of relief. "Very accurate, Mr. Lin. I'll process the transfer now. Please wait." He moved to the computer with brisk efficiency. His fingers flew over the keyboard. His face was focused. After a few minutes, he turned back with a bright smile. "The transfer has been completed. The 400 million yuan has been successfully sent to your designated account. You can check receipt via mobile banking at any time. Lin Yang nodded. Wang hurried on, insistently obliging. If you need anything, banking services or otherwise, call me. Save my number. From now on, you're one of our most distinguished clients. We're at your service 24 hours. He produced a business card and offered it with both hands, the gold lettering catching the light. Lin Yang didn't linger. He rose, and Wang, Zhang Jun, and the others accompanied him and Chen Qingqing to the car. Wang opened the door with practiced solemnity. Take care, Mr. Lin. Call me anytime. Their farewell was theatrical, waving like they were seeing off an important leader. Even after the car had driven some distance, Lin Yang could still see them in the rearview mirror, small figures standing in the sunlight. Once he was out of sight, Wang relaxed and turned to Zhang Jun, his smile shifting into something conspiratorial and pleased. Zhang Jun, effective today, you're promoted to personal client manager. You're assigned to liaise with Mr. Lin. From now on, you must meet every one of his demands immediately. No delays. Understood? Zhang Jun's stunned look melted into unrestrained joy. He hadn't expected a single check cashing to land him a promotion. He gushed thanks and vowed to work hard. Thank you, President. I won't let you down. Wang patted his shoulder. Lucky kid. If you'd told me earlier you had such a wealthy friend, I wouldn't have left you as a lobby manager. If you serve Mr. Lin well, you'll be rewarded. Zhang Jun nodded eagerly, already imagining climbing the ladder, vice president if Mr. Lin ever deposited a few hundred million casually. The thought quickened his pulse. Back at the manager's office at Xingcheng Securities, Hu Qian was watching market screens. Charts and data flickered, her fingers tapped rapidly, eyes sharp. A system alert popped up and stopped her mid-stroke. Lin Yang's account successfully received 400 million yuan. Her hand froze. She blinked, rubbed her eyes, and checked again. The figure was still there on the screen, unavoidable and unmistakable. How is this possible? She whispered. Her phone buzzed with a message from Lin Yang. Keep an eye on foodie battery stock. If anyone sells, buy all of it, no matter the price. Hu Qian drew a steadying breath. She remembered how her earlier help acquiring foodie battery shares had paid off and trusted Lin Yang's instincts. If he was issuing this order now, he must have solid intel. She called for immediate action. Get everyone to the conference room, now. This is urgent. Team members assembled quickly, sensing the gravity in her expression. Hu Qian addressed them briskly, every word clipped with authority. Monitor foodie battery around the clock. If anyone sells, buy it all. No hesitation, no price limits. This is Mr. Lin's instruction, and it's critical to our plans. Be on high alert. Nods all around. The team returned to their posts and dove into action. The office filled with the sound of fingers on keyboards and voices on the phone as they concentrated on foodie battery, ready to execute orders the moment an opportunity appeared. Chapter 79. Have Vision. Lin Yang drove Chen Qingqing to the IFS Guojin Center. After pulling into the underground parking and parking the car, they took the elevator up together. On the first floor, luxury boutiques lined the corridor, their windows displaying the season's newest fashions and accessories. Uniformed shop assistants greeted every passerby with warm smiles. Lin Yang and Chen Qingqing didn't stop to look around. They headed straight for the elevator to the second floor. Their visit had a clear purpose. Lin Yang wanted supplements for his parents, and Chen Qingqing was picking a gift for her junior high homeroom teacher. As they stepped off the elevator, they both paused when they passed a pharmacy called Jujitang. They exchanged a look, and Chen Qingqing smiled. It seems we're thinking the same thing. Ginseng is a good tonic. It replenishes qi, boosts immunity, and helps relieve fatigue. Lin Yang nodded and followed her into the store. A warm, medicinal scent hung in the air. The pharmacy's interior was classic and elegant. Wooden shelves and counters gave off a faint woody aroma, and calligraphy and informational paintings about traditional Chinese medicine lined the walls, adding a cultured touch. A female pharmacist greeted them with professional cheer. Good morning, sir, madam. We're the top pharmacy in Xing City. If you need rare herbs, you'll find them here. What can I help you with? Show us your ginseng, Lin Yang said. Certainly. The pharmacist led them to a counter where several types of ginseng were displayed and began to explain. She first pointed at a row of fresh ginseng. This fresh ginseng is our latest stock. Very fresh. See how smooth the skin is and how bright the color is? It's perfect for medicinal dishes. It retains its natural flavor and makes soups more nourishing. And it's affordable, only 99 yuan per root. Lin Yang glanced at the fresh roots. They were small, shriveled, and underwhelming, more like malnourished radishes than prized ginseng. Noticing Lin Yang and Chen Qingqing's lack of enthusiasm, the pharmacist moved on to the next display, her recommendation more animated. This 5-year ginseng was carefully cultivated. Look at the intact rootlets and clear texture. Its medicinal value is high. It's a bit pricier at 999 yuan per root, but it's worth it. Many customers come specifically for this to support their health. They leaned in to examine the 5-year roots. They at least looked like ginseng, but they were still disappointingly small, not even half the size of a little finger. Lin Yang's expression tightened. He had expected something better. Chen Qingqing shook her head slightly, clearly unimpressed. These are too ordinary. They won't do as a gift, she said. Lin Yang gave a helpless nod. The female pharmacist, oblivious to their disappointment, continued pitching another product. Our signature is this 10-year ginseng, 9,999 yuan. It has a long growth period and rich nutrients. Whether used in soup or steeped in wine, it delivers the best nourishing effects. It's ideal for parents. By then, Lin Yang and Chen Qingqing had already tuned out. In unison, they said, "They're too ordinary." Their voices edged with impatience, and they started to turn away. At that moment, a middle-aged man entered briskly. He wore a neat dark suit and had carefully groomed hair. A confident smile played across his face. He scanned the shop and quickly fixed on Lin Yang and Chen Qingqing. From the glance he had given the parking lot earlier, he recognized them as the couple who had just stepped out of a Lixiang U8. The U8 might not be the absolute top-tier luxury car, but it still cost over 1,000,000 yuan. People who drove one were typically well off, often owners of more prominent luxury cars who bought the U8 for its features. "Manager, good morning," the pharmacist said respectfully as he entered. "Morning." The man nodded, then walked straight over to Lin Yang and Chen Qingqing. His smile widened into a cordial, professional greeting. "Good morning, sir, madam." "Manager," the female pharmacist began, about to add something, but he raised a hand to silence her. A trace of sternness crossed his face as he looked at her. "Hurry and pour them a cup of our health tea," he said in a low, reproving tone. "How many times have I told you? You must be discerning with customers." He clearly thought the pharmacist had misjudged these customers. They weren't interested in ordinary cultivated ginseng. They wanted something superior, and they had the means to afford it. After the brief reprimand, his smile returned in full force as he turned back to Lin Yang and Chen Qingqing. "I'm sorry about that," he said smoothly. "Our staff downstairs lacked discernment today. Please don't mind. We do have higher-grade ginseng in the store. Please, have a seat and rest for a moment. I'll bring out some options for you to consider." Chapter 80. Buy. The store manager went behind the counter, crouched down, carefully opened the safe, and took out 4 or 5 exquisite red boxes. He carried them back to Lin Yang, spread them gently on the counter, and slowly lifted the lids. Inside each box lay a large ginseng root, as thick as a finger and glinting with a distinctive sheen. Lin Yang's attention was immediately caught. These ginseng roots were clearly in a different league from the ones he had just seen. The manager picked up one of the boxes and handed it to Lin Yang to inspect, explaining carefully, "This is a cultivated 50-year-old ginseng. Look at the dense, deep, dark iron wire patterns on it. The root hairs are completely intact, not a single one broken. None of the medicinal efficacy has been lost." Lin Yang leaned in and examined it. The manager was right. Even the finest, hair-like rootlets showed no signs of breakage. "Wild mountain ginseng is almost impossible to come by these days," the manager continued earnestly. "If a wild one ever turned up, it would never reach the open market. This 50-year-old cultivated ginseng is the best you can buy commercially." Lin Yang nodded, appreciating the manager's honesty. He was relieved the man wasn't trying to pass off cultivated ginseng as wild. "How much is this one?" he asked. 280,000 yuan, the manager replied. "All of them are the same, 50-year cultivated, 280,000 each. Okay, I'll take all of them. Please wrap them up, Lin Yang said decisively. All right, the manager brightened. The shop's pharmacist, who had been watching, became suddenly animated. Beyond serving tea for health, they thoughtfully brought over a jiao cake for Lin Yang and Chen Qingqing to try. There were 5 cultivated 50-year-old ginseng roots at 280,000 yuan apiece, a total of 1.4 million yuan. After settling the bill, Lin Yang unhesitatingly selected one root and handed it to Chen Qingqing. This one is for you to give to Teacher Wang. Previously, when he sold an antique, the buyer had refused to lower the price out of gratitude to Chen Qingqing for saving him, which had allowed Lin Yang to pocket an extra 100 million. Back then, he had only taken Chen Qingqing out to eat. Since she now wanted ginseng, this root was a small way of expressing his thanks. This is too valuable. I can't accept it for free. I'll transfer the money to you, Chen Qingqing protested, already pulling out her phone. She still had Lin Yang's bank card number from when he had sold her a mellow pearl, and before he could refuse, she had transferred the money to his account. He knew she probably used a bank transfer instead of WeChat because she worried he wouldn't accept the gift otherwise. Lin Yang didn't argue. He quietly filed the favor away, intending to repay it when the chance arose. When Lin Yang and Chen Qingqing left, the manager and pharmacists walked them to the door, calling together, "Boss, take care, and please come back." Their warm send-off drew curious looks from passing shoppers, wondering what the two had bought to merit such a display. They took the elevator down to the boutique supermarket in the basement. The tobacco and alcohol counter caught Lin Yang's eye, its shelves neatly lined with famous brands. His parents didn't drink much, but when guests came, wine and cigarettes were customary. His glance swept the display until it landed on Tianxia cigarettes at 2,000 yuan a pack and Maotai liquor at 2,280 yuan a bottle. After a moment, he decided to buy 10 packs of Tianxia and 5 cases of Maotai. Even though these purchases were expensive, they were small change compared to the ginseng. If it weren't for limited trunk space, he would have bought more. He asked the staff to deliver the purchases to the parking lot and load them into the trunk. It was almost noon, so Lin Yang suggested they have lunch, and Chen Qingqing cheerfully agreed. They took the elevator to the mall's 5th floor. The 5th floor was thick with the smell of food. Eateries and snack stands stretched in a long row, all bustling. As mealtime approached, every place had a queue, some with waiting lists over 50 parties long. Yet people kept taking numbers and joining the flow. "How about this one?" Lin Yang suggested when they passed a Western restaurant called Secret Realm. The exterior used a lot of glass that sparkled in the sunlight like a dreamlike crystal palace. Exquisite wrought iron carvings framed a wooden main door, giving it a strong European feel. It was the only restaurant on the floor that didn't require waiting, and Lin Yang, who disliked lines, was immediately sold on it. Chen Qingqing smiled approvingly. "Good choice. This Western place is considered the top-tier restaurant in Xing City." They stepped inside. A cheerful waiter greeted them and led them to an empty table, presenting the menu with both hands. Lin Yang flipped through the pages and was struck by the prices. No wonder the other restaurants were packed, while this one remained empty. A simple cream of mushroom soup cost 700 or 800 yuan, a price that could buy a full meal at an ordinary place. Steaks were priced by weight. A5 Wagyu was listed at 19.9 yuan per gram. That sounded low until he calculated. A typical steak of around 250 grams would be nearly 5,000 yuan. The prices made Lin Yang raise an eyebrow. In the past, he would have thought it outrageously extravagant and never considered trying it. But his financial situation had changed, and those changes had altered his consumer mindset. Life should include trying new things and experiencing different ways of living. Since he could afford it, why not see what it was like? Without trying, how would he know whether it was worth the price?